Senior Living Show with Joan and Dr. Bader.
Welcome to Senior Living with Joan and Dr. Bader. Today we have a guest, Rick Weber, aka Mr. Uber.
Hello, Joan. Great to be here.
Good. Great to have you.
Thank you.
So tell us about how you arrived here in Las Vegas.
Well, it's interesting. My father was an executive in New York City for his entire working career, and he raised a family of 4 boys back there, and he always loved San Francisco, loved the Bay Area, and that was passed on to his children. His oldest son, Michael, went to the University of San Francisco, a very expensive Jesuit school out in San Francisco, and in between semesters, in between years at college, he got a job at the Cliff House as a bartender. And he experienced difficulty his senior year, didn't graduate, but went on to become he took a job as a bartender full-time after that. So for the next 25 years, he worked at the Cliff House as a bartender. Then my next oldest brother, Ted, went to Notre Dame. He also encountered difficulty his senior year, went to visit my brother in San Francisco, and he also became a bartender at the Cliff House and went on to work there for another 25 years. Then my next oldest brother went to Georgetown. He also encountered difficulties in school. He flunked out of there.
Crazy.
He went to visit my brothers in San Francisco, wanted a job as a bartender at the Cliff House, but they weren't hiring that. So he became a cook. And he's still there. He was executive chef, and he's still working there at the Cliff House. So I went to Notre Dame. I had issues. It only took me 2 years to flunk out of Notre Dame. But my dad sat me down. And I feel so bad because he spent so much money on the education for his stupid kids. But he said, I love you. Whatever you choose to do in life is going to be great. Just don't get a job at the Cliff House. So I got a job at GE, and that's where I retired from it.
Oh, so you retired from GE.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your plans for retirement?
Well, it's funny. We had worked all across the country, started in San Francisco, got transferred with a job to Philadelphia, got transferred with a job to Indianapolis, and then coming back, we had a choice of either going to San Francisco or to Las Vegas. We chose Las Vegas and had no regrets ever since. But I retired early because I'd had enough of it, and I had a perfectly reasonable retirement goal, which was to watch every episode of Law & Order that I'd never seen. But after a couple of weeks of doing my retirement job, my wife came up to me and she looked at me lovingly and said, I don't care what you do, world peace, world hunger, just get out. And so I got a job as an Uber driver. And
Your wife said that to you?
She did, yes, but it was lovingly.
Oh, well, that's good. So you got a job with Uber.
Mm-hmm.
So how'd you come up with Uber?
Well, it was funny. Every year we would go back to the Bay Area because my father has since moved there and the whole family lives there now, and Lynn's family as well. So we would go Christmas in the Bay Area. And a couple of years ago was the first time we did not have a car. And we decided to try Uber because we'd heard so much about it. And we were the first time we downloaded it, we tried it in the hotel room. And I remember Lynn and I were sitting on the hotel bed watching Pankaj driving his white Acura getting closer and closer, watching turn by turn as he's coming closer and closer. And we're like, breathless, like, oh my God, he's almost here. And then the phone rings and it's Pankaj downstairs saying, are you coming out? So we went down and we used it multiple times on that trip, but it was so easy and it was inexpensive. So it took me a couple of weeks after that to finally, the light finally went off in my head like, hey, I could do this. I'm not that dumb. I could do this.
Sure. So tell our viewers who may be unfamiliar with Uber just how it works.
It's really quite simple. Both Uber and Lyft, they're very similar companies based on the same concept. And you download the app from the App Store. Either it's Uber or it's Lyft. And you just say where you're going and where you are, and it will dispatch a driver to you based on GPS. So what's perfect is up here in Sun City Anthem, there are a bunch of what I call retired old farts, like myself, that just sit around in the morning. And I started about 6 o'clock in the morning, and 99.9% of my requests are going to the airport. So I
Sure.
take somebody from here to the airport, and then I'm off, who knows wherever the demand takes me to.
Oh, that is really great. And how do you, I mean, how do they know, how do they feel comfortable with this driver that they're hiring? Is there some sort of a rating or?
Every time that you give a ride as an Uber driver, the passenger is prompted to either, well, to do both. Do you want to leave a tip for the driver? And also to rate the driver. Now, neither one of those are requirements, but it's there as an option. So the highest rating you can get is 5 stars. And my rating right now is, depending on what day of the week you're looking, it's about 4.98 to 5.0. So I've given an awful lot of rides. And when people request it, they can see the rating of the driver, the star rating, and also a picture of the driver. So sometimes people have told me that they've canceled other rides because evidently somebody looks like an axe murderer that's about to pick them up.
Oh.
And so they cancel the ride and just request another one.
Sure.
And if you cancel a ride request within 2 minutes, then you're not charged for it.
I see. So you have special little things that you do for your riders, is that right?
I do.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, doing a ride share is the most unnatural thing in the world unless you're a millennial. If you're a millennial, I don't know, I guess these kids were delivered at the hospital in an Uber. I don't know, because it's just second nature to them. But for everybody else, it's awkward getting into a stranger's car, and you just don't know, you're not sure it's the right car. So what I do is I have a whiteboard with me, and so as soon as I get a request, I put the person's name on the whiteboard, and I hold it out. If I'm at the airport or a hotel or something like that, I hold out the sign with your name on it, so it becomes very
Makes you
clear.
feel so welcome.
Exactly. And then I also have a list of things that I offer. I think you have the list right here. You can see it, but it's welcome to Rick's car. These are the things that I offer. I have aspirin and Tums and gum and all that other stuff, but I also have different things in the I forgot it bucket. So it could be anything from prescription glasses to reading glasses to toothbrush to toothpaste.
How thoughtful.
Well,
Gee.
I've done a lot of traveling in my career, and I have forgotten an awful lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
it's so annoying now.
That is
when
annoying.
I go to a restaurant, I don't have my reading glasses. There's only so many times you can take a picture of the menu at the restaurant and then blow it up later to look at it. So I know
a good
it's a pain.
idea, though.
Yeah, I think so.
So in the 2 years that you've been driving, how many people have you picked up?
Well, it's funny. I actually have a
Or
fair
rides.
amount of people that I've given duplicate rides to, but between Uber and Lyft, I'm approaching 10,000 rides.
Oh my gosh.
So,
10,000?
and obviously I can't remember them all, but there's one young man who I've given a ride to work evidently 7 times. Because last time I picked him up, he said, "Oh, this is the 7th time that you picked me up." And I remembered him, but I didn't know it had been 7 times. But there's a number of people I've given multiple rides to.
That's crazy. So in all of these rides, you must have some incredible stories that you remember that you could share with us.
Well,
Maybe just one.
if Shakespeare were an Uber driver, he would write volumes about what happens in the back of my car. It's like every day is a new episode of Taxi Cab Confessions. So I'll go home and I'll sit with my wife. We'll have a glass of wine, sit outside, and she'll just say, "Okay, what happened today?" So there is always something. It can be tragic in people's lives. It can be quite comic in people's lives. I'm not sure one of the most touching stories was a 91-year-old man that I picked up. I was at the Westgate, and I pulled up. I had just dropped somebody off. And every hotel has a specific area that you need to get picked up at.
Yeah.
So to cut down on the confusion. And there was an older man there and a young lady, and they were both staring intently at their iPhone. And I could tell they were having issues. So I got out of the car, which I don't normally do, and I went over and I said, "Do you need some help?" And she said, "Yes, I'm trying to get my father-in-law, I'm trying to get him an Uber." And I said, "Well, this is how you do it." And so I walked them through it. And she said, "Okay, well, let's do it." I said, "Okay." And I looked, and it was going all the way to Laughlin. and it gives you an estimated fare in terms of the distance. And I said, you really want to order a car? It's going to be $120. And she's like, oh yeah, want to do it. So we did it. And of course it chose me because I was standing right next to her at the time. So he got in the car, and he was one of the most fascinating men I've ever met. He was telling me about his wife of 60 years, how she had gotten dementia. He was the primary caregiver, and he loved her so much, and yet towards the end, his health was declining. And when she finally passed, he was in a wheelchair because he was just devastated by all the work that he'd done. And his son was his best friend, and it was the daughter-in-law, his son's wife, that had helped with the car. And he said that on this trip, they were going to a truck pulling contest. And he's like, we've seen enough truck pulls in my life. I don't want to see any more. I'm going to go visit a friend in Laughlin. So that's where he was going. But over the next 2 hours, I got a history of his life, which was just fascinating. And he was just an incredible man. And when the trip was over, we get there, he shakes my hand, he sticks some money in my pocket for a tip, and he says, I am just sorry that I didn't have a chance to meet your father.
Oh,
It was just such a touching moment. But there are,
so wonderful.
for every moment like that, there are just tragic moments and there are just hysterical moments. Should I tell you the one about... All right, I will tell the one about the woman I picked up at the Aria one morning.
Yes, please.
So, again, every hotel has a specific pickup spot. So I pull up to the Aria at 10:30 on a Thursday morning, and the woman's not there. So I call her, and she answers the phone, and I explain to her that she's not at the pickup spot, and where it is. And she says, no, you pick me up now. And I say to her, well, number one, I don't know where you are, and number two, I'm not allowed to. And she says, no, you come pick me up. So I go through the spiel again, and suddenly there's a Hispanic gentleman I'm talking to. And I said, yeah, she needs to come to the pickup spot. He said, I know where it is. See, no problem. So I'm like, okay. So next thing I know, I'm holding up my whiteboard, and I got the door to my car open, and this woman comes wandering down the sidewalk, meandering down, and there's a gardener next to her. And he gets about 100 yards away, and he sees the sign, he sees the door, and he goes, and I go, okay. And he gets the hell out of there, because he was working, he was planting flowers or something. She didn't exchange a word with him, she just slapped him with her phone, evidently. So he walked her down there. He wanted to get the hell out of there as quick as he could. So she comes down, she's got a full cocktail in her hand. And I say to her, no, you can't take that in the car. So she just looks at me, and she goes, not a problem. And she downs the whole cocktail. I'm like, oh crap, this is not what I had in mind.
Oh no.
So then she cocks her arm like she's going to throw the glass into the street. I'm like, no. So I take the glass from her, and I put it under a railing like 5 feet away. I turn around. By the time I get back to here, she's getting into somebody else's car. So I get her out of that car, get her in my car, and she immediately starts telling me that she loves me.
Oh.
Very, very unusual in my 10,000 rides. And as I'm pulling away from the curb, she almost immediately takes off her high heels, her red high heels. And before I know it, this foot snakes up between the seats, and she starts stroking my thigh with her foot.
Oh.
I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. So I put the foot back there, and she says, oh, I'm sorry. So we go on again. She keeps telling me that she loves me and various other things in either Ukrainian or Russian, I don't know which. And we get on the freeway, and I could feel a tug on my seat.
Oh,
so
no.
She's in the back seat, so I know there's something stupid is going to happen. And sure enough, she throws her arms around my shoulders, and she starts kissing the side of my neck as I'm driving.
On the freeway.
On the freeway. So I say, no, no. So again, I push her back with this. She says, oh, that was so stupid. I'm so sorry. And again, she tells me she loves me. And then next thing I know, she says,
Oh boy.
I'll throw a euphemism there because it's a great line, but it's got to be said. She says, you fluff my brain, which is an expression I know what she means, but I certainly have never heard that before. So I ignore it. I don't make eye contact. I don't acknowledge it at all. And she continues to tell me that she loves me. I finally get her to her house, and she's not getting out of the car. So I get out, I open the back door again, I extend my hand to get her out of the car. She starts kissing my hand. I'm like, stop it. No, this is where you live. You need to go here. So I finally get her upright. When I get her upright, she again lunges at me and starts kissing me on the front of my face. I'm like, no, stop. You live here. You need to go here. So she goes halfway up her walkway. She turns around, and I would be mortified if this happened in front of my house, obviously. But she turns around and she yells, I make pizza. We fluff. I'm like, oh my Lord. And I'm thinking to myself, pizza sounds pretty. No. It's not going to happen. So she goes into the house, the door opens, she steps inside. I'm like, thank God. So I get in, finish the ride, drive a half block away. I get out, I keep water and rags in the back, and I basically give myself a sponge bath. Get back in the car, and as soon as I turn on the car, there's a ride request from the same woman at the same address I just dropped off. So I did not accept it, but to this day I kick myself. I didn't go back and sit across the street and watch the next poor bastard that pulled up. At that point, she was probably naked with a frozen pizza. I don't know, but I should have, but I didn't.
No, there's a story. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
So with this whiteboard, you write the person's name on it so they can identify you.
Mm-hmm.
And do you ever have a problem with the wrong person getting into your car?
Well, it's funny that you should mention that because several times. One time at the airport, it turns out a gentleman from South Africa needed a ride, and his name was Undango. Mr. Undango Smith. I don't know what it was, but it just came across as Undango. So I write Undango on the whiteboard, pull into the terminal at the airport, and this couple come down. They're like, ooh! And so I ooh back at them, and I pull in, and we put their luggage in the car, and I start the ride, and I say, so we're going to Aria? And they said, no, we're going to Red Rock. So I turned around and I looked at them, and I said, is your name Undango? She said, no. I said, well, why did you get in my car? She said, oh, we just thought it was a local greeting. And I'm thinking to myself, what language do you think we speak in Las Vegas? It is kind of a cool mahalo, undango.
Undango.
And then numerous times I've had people come up to me. Sometimes they run up to me with I'm holding a sign that will say Joe, and they'll come up and say, is that your name or is that my name? Like, why would I be holding a sign with my name out here? But then, again, one of the classics was at the Venetian. They used to have the pickup in the front, and it was total chaos with the cabs there and all the Uber drivers and all that stuff. It was just, I thought the bellmen were going to have heart attacks screaming at people to move, get out of the way. So it helps a lot to have a sign with somebody's name on it because it gets them in and out of there quickly. But I get a request, and I write it on the board, and I pull up, and I'm holding up the whiteboard. I'm not even thinking twice about it. It says Dad. So I'm driving up, and people are like nudging each other and pointing at me with the sign, and I'm thinking, oh man, they're thinking that I'm picking up my own father and I don't know what he looks like. So I pull up.
Oh, sure.
Nobody moves. So I'm like, okay. So I call just to tell them that I'm there, and I can see one person on the sidewalk do this, and he's talking to his phone. Hello. Hi, this is your Uber driver. Yeah, I'm here. No, you're not. Yeah, I am. I'm right in front of you. No, you're not. There's just some guy here holding a whiteboard that says Dad. I said, well, I don't know how to break it to you, but that's you. So he gets in the car, and then we finally figure out that his daughter had borrowed his phone the night before, and she'd gone into the settings and changed the name from Jack to Dad.
Oh,
and of course,
explains it.
He's over 50. He has no clue how to fix it, so I'm sure he's still traveling the world, and there's Dad everywhere across the country.
Rick, you have so many stories, so we've got to get together again and refresh our Uber stories.
Absolutely. I mean, the list of stories keeps growing. My wife keeps telling me I got to write a book. This is probably the next best thing, so absolutely, I'd love to.
Wonderful. We'll look forward to that.
All right, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for coming,
My pleasure.
and have a great day.
Thanks.
We'll see you soon on Senior Living. That's it for today's show. And we'll see you next week, and check us out on Facebook and on our YouTube site.
Check us out on Facebook and YouTube.